I'm going to teach you how to be an awesome beta reader. I'm going to talk about expectations, goals, tracking, grading system, a how to read it, how to deliver the feedback, and what not to do. Also, make sure you stick around because I'm going to be doing a live beta reading of one of my difficult chapters in The Last Scarecrow. By the way, I'm Kauffman. I'm a daily writing streamer, 430 plus consecutive streams and counting, and I've talked with hundreds of writers and readers, and I hear all of the same similarities, all the same problems from writers and readers. I got a beta reader, but they didn't give me the feedback I needed. I got a beta reader, but payment didn't work out. The timeline was off. I got worst feedback, and I feel like my time was wasted. Or I've also heard I've done a beta reading. I didn't get what was expected of me in return. We're going to be touching upon all of that and more. So how do you be an awesome beta reader? Do you need to be an excellent reader? Do you need to be an excellent writer? Or is it a mix of both? Some people will tell you that you need to be an awesome writer to be able to be a reader because you need to be able to deliver feedback in a way that is understanding of storytelling structure. Some people are going to tell you that you need to be an awesome beta reader, that you need to be a reader because you have to understand reading conventions. What is a beta reader? Somebody who will come to give your manuscript a critique. Generally, this reader is somebody in your genre. Now, a beta reader is not to be confused with an alpha reader. An alpha reader is somebody who is an industry professional. This could be somebody who is an editor like myself, or somebody who might have a background in writing and will deliver a critique. Why is that important? A reader in your genre is going to understand your reading conventions. They're going to understand the tropes. They're going to understand what's popular and probably what's not popular for the genre conventions and all of the things that are important in your genre. Let's say that you are looking for a beta reader and you are a fantasy writer, but you get a beta reader and they predominantly read horror. Could they give some good feedback? Absolutely. But they might miss certain conventions that might be relating to how magic systems are supposed to go, or unaware of what current trends might be like. You want to make sure that your beta reader is in your genre. You want to be a beta reader. Where do you go? Now, the first thing that I recommend is go onto social media, do the free thing first. Go join writing communities. Now, I always recommend going onto Facebook writing groups because they have very diverse cultures of writing and it's very much focused and refined around the writing process. You could, of course, also come our Right Now Discord community. We have a lot of writers in there and we have a feedback section in there. So that way you can offer your services as a beta reader. You could also offer your services as a beta reader on paid gig sites like Fiverr. Also go on to other social media platforms, like you can go on to Reddit, which the readers you're going to find on there is going to be a little bit more nation specific, but you can find people on there. When you go onto one of these sites, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to share. You create a post or you network with people and you say this type of thing. I want to be a beta reader, or I am an experienced beta reader. This is the amount that I've read or my reading. You can call it to what you've read or maybe your writing expertise. I am interested in beta reading a novel of this type of word count, this genre, in exchange for a beta reading of your story because you're probably wanting feedback on your book. And this is such a great low-cost method to be able to get free feedback for your work, especially because the writing process can be so pricey at times. And I highly recommend, right, that we should invest in the cover design. We should invest in the editor. So trying to find low cost options for readers is always such a great strategy. Now, absolutely, we can get feedback from our friends and family. That's a good, easy place to start. But the challenge is if those friends or family members aren't reading in your specific genre, you might not be able to get that real feedback that you really need if they don't understand your genre conventions. Step number 1, setting expectations. So this is a step that a lot of writers, a lot of readers skip. They don't go through each of these parts and then they go through the beta reading experience and there's so many missed opportunities. There's frustration, there's upset, there's resentment, there's poor feedback, and that's all because you didn't set expectations in the beginning. Now, if you've ever been a freelancer or you've done any type of gig work, you might be familiar with some of these processes. And the truth is, you want to treat it like a real business transaction. Whether or not money is involved, you want to treat it as professional as possible, because if you treat it professionally, you're going to get the return on that time. You're more likely to get what you're putting into the entire experience. There are 4 things that you want to set and clarify as expectations during this first part. And I always start with expectations because you want to make sure that everybody, both parties, are on the same page when you're starting this process. Communication. How are you going to communicate with each other throughout the process? Are we communicating via email? Are we communicating via phone, Discord, social media? Establish the forms of communication. And you also want to communicate with each other in the overall timeline. Do both of you think like, okay, I will let you know when I am just starting your reading, I am halfway through your reading, and I'm done with it? Or maybe neither of you care too much about that. Maybe you're like, all right, I will establish when I started it and when I've ended it. The great thing is you can make it as flexible as you want to be. Awesome. And then once you've set communication standards, you want to clarify the timeline. This is a thing that so many readers and writers skip. If you haven't established how long it's supposed to take for each of you to be able to do an entire reading, then you're going to be frustrated when your unspoken expectations are not met. So make sure to establish, when does the reading start for both of you based off your schedules and what you guys agreed to? And then when and how long do you expect it to take you? And when should you guys be done with the beta reading? When should you guys deliver on the things and make everything happen? Now, if you're like, Kauffman, I don't know how long it's going to take me to do a beta reading. Take a guess. How long does it take you to read through a book on average? Average out how long it typically takes you to read through something, and then double that. Now, why am I saying double that? Because you're going to need to be able to take notes and come up with ideas and understand analytically what are the problems that writer needs to solve. So make sure to give yourself enough time. All right. And the third thing you want to clarify is deliverables. What are you going to be delivering to the other reader, author? What are you going to be delivering to them? Are you delivering a 1-page bullet point list of, okay, these are my problems that I had when I was reading the novel, and this is what I think should be fixed? Or are you agreeing to, okay, we're going to text each other this, whenever I see a problem, I'm going to text you, this is a problem I see, or this is a problem I see. And maybe it's more of a back and forth, or maybe it is a social media message exchange, or maybe you're like, all right, I'm going to give you a 10-page document that lists all of the different problems. The thing is, you can make it as casual or as professional as you want. The great thing is, it really comes down to what type of reading experience you want to deliver, and then what type of experience you expect to receive. All right. And most importantly, payment. Does it cost money to hire a beta reader? Sometimes, yes. They're on gig websites like Fiverr. It will probably cost you to hire a beta reader if you go that route. However, if you are exchanging services, you can do a beta reading for free. A lot of the times, writers assume it costs to get their work beta read. But the great thing is, time is also a resource. Don't forget that. Time is the most finite resource. We can collect more money, but we cannot collect more time. So you always want to keep that in mind. And this is what I always suggest for writers all the time. If you are on a specific budget and you're like, all right, I have this much to invest in the different parts of the process, be willing to offer a beta reading for somebody else And then that way you can get beta reading on your own work. Now, if you are aware of what your word count is for your manuscript, then make sure to try to look for somebody whose manuscript is probably around the same word count. That'll just make it a little easier and fairer. Of course, it's not necessary, but it makes it feel like more of an equivalent value, even if you guys are both doing different genres, right? So let's say you are an avid reader and you read romance, you read thriller, you read mystery, you also like to read young adult. Now there's a couple different genres you could represent and you could share, right? Like these are the types of genres that I could offer based on the manuscript, and it just gives you more options. So that is what I would recommend for payment. All right, beautiful. So that is step one: communication, timeline, deliverables, and payment. Making sure you are setting up each of those at the very beginning is so important. Okay, so once you've clarified all those expectations, and this is the very first step before anything gets started, we're going to move on to step two. And this one is always skipped. This one is always skipped by beta readers. I'm always surprised that this one gets skipped so often. Clarifying author goals. How can we know what type of feedback we want to deliver to the author if we don't know what the author's goals and expectations are for their project? We could go into a beta reading experience with the best of intentions, wanting to solve all of the problems, but maybe they're only trying to fix their characters. Maybe they already know that there's problems in their plot and they recognize that, but they're like, for me to fix the plot problems, I need to solve the character development problems first. So this is why it's so important for you to ask, what are their goals? What type of feedback do they expect to receive once you've delivered everything to them? This is so important. And of course you want to do the same for your work. Now a lot of times writers, especially newer writers, will say, "Okay, yeah, just tell me what you think." And that's all right. Like, of course, like we all want to know what others think of our books, right? But what we're really asking is, tell me what you think, but don't be too. A lot of writers will be like, don't be too critical because I want feedback, but I also don't want to get hurt because there's a lot of social and mental health obstacles out there. Or maybe you are the type of writer where you're like, hey, you know what? Make the feedback as harsh as possible because I want the book to be as awesome as possible. Giving a reader permission is a huge win. If you are giving the reader permission to give you as harsh a feedback as possible, you're allowing them to overcome their own whatever fear they might be holding on to so they can give you more direct and intentional feedback. And I think that can be a very powerful step. So once you guys have established author goals, then you are going to move on to step number 3: tracking your thoughts. Tracking your thoughts. Now, what does this mean? You would think that this would be an easy one, right? I would think this would be an easy one. But what is your plan to take down notes when you are reading the novel? Sometimes readers will go into a novel, and this is why what I've experienced, a lot of time readers won't get good feedback, is because a reader will go into it and not take any notes. They will think, okay, I'm just going to read it and see how it makes me feel. That can be part of it. But if you're not tracking how you are feeling and thinking for each of the elements throughout the beta read, how can you really deliver on, let's say, like a 90,000 word manuscript? You're not going to remember some of the character moments or some of the plot or world building moments. You'll remember the overall way it made you feel. But if you're not tracking everything, you're not going to be able to deliver a great beta reading experience. So definitely make sure that you are aware that you need to track your thoughts as you're going and asking yourself, how are you going to track your thoughts? Are you using a notebook? Are you writing it down on a computer? And I think this really comes down to personal preference. So, what I like to do, I like to stick to my computer, or if I'm going to go read elsewhere that's not in front of my workstation, then I will move the book onto a tablet and then take down notes into a notebook that I can then translate later, or not translate, transcribe to a later date to digital form. Once we've decided how we are going to be tracking our thoughts, which is so important, we are going to next move on to the grading system. Now, this is going to be the process that's going to show you step by step how to grade the entire reading experience. But before we get there, are you enjoying the stream? Then make sure to subscribe. I'm here every day with the Right Now community, 430 plus consecutive streams and counting. If you're looking for a daily writing community, if you're looking for a community of writers of all genres and skill levels, and you want writing sprints, you want critique streams, you want author interviews, book clubs, writing conferences, and much more, then the Right Now community is the place for you. So make sure to tap that subscribe button and you'll be alerted when we go live or when we publish that next video to help you be a better writer. Defining your grading system. Now, if you're going into being a beta reader for a story and you don't have some type of system or framework in place, how can you expect to deliver feedback outside of just how it made you feel? And maybe if the author only wants to know how it made you feel, or that could work, but I'm going to give you a really clear system, a clear strategy to help you so the next time that you're asked to do a beta reading for somebody, you can follow this step-by-step process. So when we are talking about a grading system, we're going to be looking at 4 different elements of the being a beta reader. So there's 4 different things that you're going to want to look for when you're going through a manuscript. Now, for those of you who watch my live streams on the critique show, I follow a very similar framework, which is why the critique stream is really a type of alpha or beta reading. So the first thing that you want to be focused on is character development. When we're thinking about the characters of the story, we want to ask ourselves, what are the character problems? Why does the character feel believable to me or not believable to me? What things make the character feel flat? What things make them feel awesome? For our main character, for our supporting characters, for our antagonist, and any of the characters in the world, right? Because the more feedback we can give, especially because characters are so important, if your readers don't connect with your characters, they're not going to keep reading your book. So we want to make sure that we have a specific section of our notes just for the characters in each chapter or story beat, depending on your story. So character development is one focus. The second focus is plot and narrative. How does the plot and narrative work of the overarching story? Now, sometimes plot beats and character development beats can overlap. The thing we want to think through is if we pull back from the overall story, how is the story progressing from point A to point B? So, for example, if I was going to do a class, we'll do Harry Potter. Everyone's familiar with Harry Potter. So, if I was going to do a beta read of the first book or the first chapter, I might be asking myself things like, how is Harry Potter's character affected by the Dursleys, the family in the beginning? How is the Hagrid chapter? How does Hagrid come across? How do each of the Dursley characters come across? How does the owl work? Is the owl interesting? Why doesn't it work? Why doesn't it work? Now, if I was going to ask myself plot beats, then I would be asking myself, okay, so from a plot perspective, does it work that Harry starts off the story as an underdog in the Dursleys? What is that? His room underneath the stairs, right? Does that work as a plot beat? Does it work as a plot beat with the owl when the owls start trying to deliver him the letters from Hogwarts? Does it work does the plot work that Harry is picked on by Dursley, by the Dursleys. So you want to start thinking about the overall plot beats. Now, you don't necessarily need to touch on every single beat, but you want to be asking yourself these questions. Does this beat work? Does it feel like it works? Yes or no? Now, you can make a note of it, and as you read, you're like, okay, maybe this plot beat will work. Maybe it's starting to make more sense. Some things that can help is writing down what questions are on my mind at this part of the story. And as you progress, if that question is answered, great job. Tell the author, great job. I had a question as a reader. You answer that. That is going to bring value to the author because the author wants to know, are the questions that they're posing to the characters through the plot working? So I know that is definitely a good value proposition that will help. Third thing you want to focus on, world building. How do the different world building elements work or detract from the story? What are world building elements? This could be in fantasy. This could be something like magic systems. In romance, this could be something like romance world building elements would be items or things that make the love interests maybe fall in love with each other, hate each other. There could be things about the world that might make it harder or easier for them to enter into whatever their relationship is. World building elements can be races or cultures. They could be events. In the thriller or a mystery genre, world building elements could be who done it killer items. They could be a world building elements could be a setting, it could be a place, it could be objects, it could be materials. And if you're thinking like, okay, well, can world building elements overlap with character and plot elements? Absolutely, right? So sometimes you're going to find a beat and sometimes it will overlap. Like, let's say you have a character found an object. Sometimes that object will overlap as it's a character development thing. It's also a plot beat, but it also works as a world building element. Sometimes things overlap, sometimes they don't. Your goal is just to point out what you see. And by helping to put them into which category you think they fit, you're going to help the author better understand and identify what problems they're trying to solve. All right. And the fourth thing. Now, this fourth one, I kind of go back and forth with. I like to think of the fourth one as structure. Now, if a writer is getting a beta read from somebody, the structure of their manuscript might not be in a more advanced place yet because it's early on in the process. When we think about structure, we want to think of things like, how are the paragraphs structured? Does it feel like there's enough blank space? Does it feel like there's too much blank space? From a structure, how does it feel like the chapters are structured? Does it feel, from a reading experience, do the chapter lengths feel good? You want to keep in mind that the shorter a chapter is, the easier we're making it for the reader to get to the chapter. The longer a chapter is, the more time commitment we're asking for a reader to embark and get to the end of that chapter. If our first chapter is the longest in the book, we're making it difficult for a reader to get into the book. If the first chapter is short, we're making it easier for the reader to get into the story. So these are just a couple things that you want to be asking yourself with the structure of the novel. Now, things that we don't want to worry about in the beta reading, of course, unless the writer or author asks, you don't want to focus on grammar. The writer during the beta reading phase, this usually will happen before the full editing process is done. They are aware that there's going to be grammar issues. You also probably don't want to touch on style. Now, if you're reading a section, you're like, hey, this would be an awesome way to reword that, add that as a suggestion. I guarantee you, if an author is working on a book and they have a chapter and they've been trying to struggle with this chapter, and then you suggest the most perfect line ever, and like it sings, they will love you for it. But style is something that's going to evolve throughout the process based on the story and the author's skill level. And it's going to help be further refined by the editor. Now, a lot of times the beta reading will usually happen either before or during the editing process. So if the editing process hasn't happened yet, then you're not going to want to worry about the style. You want to focus more on these big picture elements as it pertains to the overall reading experience. All right. So with all those elements, the next step we want to move on to, now that we've defined a grading system for you to use when doing a beta read, step 5, we want to clarify reading in increments. I recommend breaking up the reading experience into at least a couple of reading sessions. Sure, you can do it in one read if you want to just get it out of the way, but you want to give yourself time to absorb what you're reading, think analytically, think critically, so that way you can deliver better feedback. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to break up the reading experience into sections. If I'm looking at the overall book, and based off how well I know my reading speed, I will ask myself, okay, how many sessions will it take me to read this book? Sometimes I will space them out, knowing that I can read one section. I'll take my notes with it as I'm going through it, but then I'll step away for a day or two, maybe a couple of days, depending on my schedule, come back to it. I'll review those notes and be like, okay, maybe that all made sense. Maybe like thinking about that character moment, I kind of feel differently now after thinking about it. So I think giving yourself time to read in increments is so, so important. Okay. And lastly, step number 6, deliver on your promise. If you say you are going to deliver your feedback, your beta read at a certain time, at a certain date, deliver it at a certain time or at a certain date. What happens a lot of times is readers will commit to something and then they don't deliver on it because then the feedback ends up becoming, oh, well, you know what? I got busy. Life happened. Right. And that happens to the best of us. What I highly recommend is knowing yourself. If you're not able to hold yourself accountable for the beta reading experience and be able to stay consistent, either give yourself more time or just be realistic, right? Do you have the consistency to be able to get through a beta read and be able to deliver feedback as expected from the other reader, right? Same with that other reader, right? If you guys are starting off on a positive framework and you've gone through this whole step-by-step process, then by the end, by the time you are ready to deliver on everything, on all the deliverables, you will both deliver on that promise and you will give all the notes and feedback that you had on your reading experience, and you'll receive all the notes and feedback to help make your story a better story. So you can help fix those problems and then get it ready for the next revision or ready for the editor. Do you want more daily or weekly or monthly tips to become a better writer? Then subscribe to the Art of Writing newsletter. You'll get things delivered directly to your inbox, like writing articles, writing tips, and techniques to help you improve and make the writing process that much easier. You'll also get access to the weekly Right Now live stream schedules. So that way you know when we're going live with the community and you know what streams to expect before they get posted on social media later in the week. You'll also get access to the live events that we will send out. We send out exclusive deals and content to the Art of Writing newsletter subscribers. So make sure to subscribe right now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. What not to do as a beta reader. So I've touched on a couple of things. Starting at the top of the process, don't expect, don't don't put yourself out there as a beta reader if you don't have the time to be able to do a beta read. Like that's one of the big ones, right? Because you don't want to have somebody go to the whole process of beta reading your stuff and then you don't deliver on your end. And that's going to create a lot of frustration for them, and that just won't be fair. So make sure that if you're committing to doing a beta read, that you have the time to do the reading and deliver on the feedback. Let's see, what are other things? So when I talk with writers, I hear all different types of feedback for beta readers. Let's see. So as a beta reader, what are other things to do? I would say when clarifying your author goals, don't just say I want don't just say that I want whatever feedback you can give me, right? We know if you're doing a beta read, we all know that we all know that you want whatever feedback they can give. You want to be very intentional with the type of feedback that you're looking for. So you want to make your ask for your goals as less generic as possible. Something I always like to recommend. What are the series of questions that you have in your mind? Do you have a bullet point list of the things that you're thinking through with your novel? That's always a really great place to start when clarifying what your goals are for the beta reading. Sometimes it could also help if you also include a list of like, these are the problems I'm aware of. You'll probably see these things, but these are problems that I know I need to address. Sometimes that can create a biased experience for the reader. So I could go either way on that one, but that's just something to think through. So I will do a quick live beta reading of my own work for a chapter that I know needs help, which is chapter 1. So for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to go page by page to make it a little easier for you. Normally I would stop chapter by chapter, but I just want to do this so that way we can give you some better examples. I think this will work out a little better. And let me move this. We'll move it here. Perfect. Okay. So, chapter 1, Fields of the Last. Wake up. A straw hat landed upon a head of willow hair, and his eyes opened. A vibrant rising sun of red and orange hues greeted him. The magnanimous beauty of the sphere brought about a sense of peace. Why was something so beautiful, so painful to gaze upon? His eyes watered, forcing a raised arm to offer a small respite of shade. Within the frayed holes of a worn sleeve, a stale-smelling stuffing seeped out between strands of neatly woven straw. Confusion replaced his admiration as the sun moved further away, eastward perhaps, and was replaced by a dauntingly dark blue moon in seconds. A strange night light engulfed the lands, off in the distance. Dumb scarecrow, dumb scarecrow, dumb scarecrow, a crow cawed from a wooden stake up above. Wrapped, he peered down at his fingerless canvas gloves with twig-wrapped vine fingers sticking out as he stretched them. I'm a scarecrow? He whispered and smacked his lips. How long had it been since he had uttered any word? A word, any word. They felt dry, but... So I'm just going to pause here and let me think. So from this first one, I'm asking myself, you see guys here, I'm creating a bullet point list. All right, we don't want that to be bold. So from the character, it looks like we have a crow and a scarecrow. So the crow repeating here, that feels like a very crow-like thing to say. So crow, I like that he repeats his words. And then we have scarecrow. What do I have here? Scarecrow. Why does he ask, I'm a scarecrow? Now, I'm not going to put this yet, but that he's calling him a scarecrow. Now he's asking himself, is he a scarecrow? This feels a little repetitive and makes his character feel a little dim. I'm just going to put dim here, and I might change this, but I just want to put this as a note. Too early for plot. I'll probably save the plot for the end of the chapter. World building. Something that stood out to me. All right. So for world building, we spend the first paragraph talking about the environment. So I'd say opening page talking about the landscape. Is that important? Consider shortening. Because I know for genre conventions, readers don't always want to start off with a page of landscape description. So this is something to think about. All right. And then was there anything else? Nope, we just started getting some description. So, okay, let's move along to the second page. They felt dry, but of a thicker material than the gloves or straw build. Perhaps he should try Focus Scarecrow, the crow cawed, landing squarely on top of his head, which he could judge from a pair of talons that sank through the hat. The crow tilted its head down in front of the Scarecrow's face. At this closeness, the sleek white and gray feathers running around large eyes, one black, one white, were very noticeable. The crow's head twitched. Not a scarecrow, just a scared crow. I don't feel like a crow or scared. Granted, he didn't quite understand what scared meant in that moment. Actually, I feel. Ah! The crow pecked at his eye. The scarecrow flinched, thinking he'd just lost an eye, only to realize a clear protective thing had blocked the crow's beak. He felt his face as the crow flew around him in circles, squawking, Scared crow, scared crow, scared. A thin, soft fabric covered his mouth. No wonder his voice was muffled. He tugged, feeling the knotted fabric drop to his chin. Covering his eyes was a pair of. Scarecrow tried to pull them away from his face, watching them stretch out. Like the fabric around his neck, they eye coverings were attached to. All right, I'm going to pause there. So we have here this crow is, he says focus here, but then the crow goes back to, what is it? Scared crow. So it kind of feels like the crow kind of goes back and forth. So I like that he repeats his words. Is his dialogue, or I'm going to ask, could his dialogue be more consistent? Could his dialogue be more consistent? And we're so early, we don't know enough about this crow yet. I'm assuming I'm a reader who knows nothing about this book. Then I could ask, like, okay, maybe his dialogue could be more consistent. This is just a note on my mind. Okay, what else stood out to me? It looks like we're doing a lot of setup for describing the character. The crow pecked at his eye. Okay, so this is kind of funny, right? So the crow tries to peck his eye, but Scarecrow has some type of protective thing. I think I would just clarify. I think this is character. Clarify what is the thing Scarecrow is. What is the thing on Scarecrow? Because there's a lot of character description in this. So I think that can be better clarified. And he has some type of thin, soft fabric. Why aren't they just saying what this fabric is? But maybe it's because it's a character thing. Okay, so I'll just leave it for that for now. Those are the main things that come to mind. All right, let's continue on the next page. Like the fabric around his neck, the eye coverings were attached to a smooth, stretchy material. He could only pull them out so far. In the distance, the moon hid behind clouds, overshadowed by the sun, which now stood solo in the sky. He tried to look straight at it, but without the eye coverings, his eyes hurt. He let go of the eye coverings as they stretched back and smacked him in the face. He fell onto his side, wincing. The crow sprawled to the ground, landing on its back, both wings flapping up and down as it squawked with a defeating screech. Scarecrow rubbed his head, sliding the eye coverings up his forehead instead, while he lay in the dirt, watching the crow. Are you laughing? Scared and brainless crow. I have a brain. At least I hope I do. I don't remember, honestly. He whispered, confused the more he thought about it. Guess I don't remember much of anything. It dawned on him. There were other scarecrows and, hey! Hay is for horse's horse brain, Crow cawed while fiercely pecking Scarecrow's upper arm. Scarecrow opened his mouth to respond, stopping to think about it. Actually, I guess you're right. Ouch! No, that tickles. Horse, Crow said between pecks. Brain, and more pecks. Scared, pecks. Crow, he caught in Scarecrow's. All right, so when I'm looking at this one, now, as a reader and also as an editor, I'm seeing a number of syntax problems. I'm seeing some dialogue. I'm seeing things that could definitely be edited for word choice and cleaned up. But we want to keep in mind that we're not here to deal with grammar and we're not here to deal with syntax, right? We're just treating this as a beta reading experience. However, let's say if as I'm reading it, there's things that detract because of the structure, I could add that as miscellaneous notes, right? Like there's nothing wrong with miscellaneous notes. These words feel like, these, let's see, I'll move me to the other side real fast. I feel like these words are detracting from the story, right? So you could always do that if there's things that really stand out to you. But I think it's a moment by moment thing. I think you just base it off of what issues you're seeing. So thinking through this one, let's see. I feel like, are you laughing? I mean, I think the crow's dialogue still kind of goes back and forth at times, and we had already touched upon that. It kind of feels like the crow's dialogue could be a little bit more consistent. You can only pull it in the distance. You try to look straight at it, but without the eye coverings. Okay, so we're touching upon this, the description again. Something about this is funny. So it seems like this crow is enjoying attacking the scarecrow. The scarecrow's dialogue, I mean, I have a brain, at least I hope I do. Okay, Wizard of Oz reference. Or like, okay, world building. I could put here, I like the Wizard of Oz reference. Or if I was a reader, I don't like the Wizard of Oz reference. Whatever you want to put, whatever floats your boat, right? And let's see. I think once again, like the dialogue could be cleared up a little bit, but as a reader, I'm not really trying to help fix the dialogue. I'm just trying to see if it makes sense for the character, the plot, the world building, or the structure. All right, Hayes for horses. Yep, that's crow. Scarecrow. Open his mouth to respond. So I've been thinking about it. Actually, I guess you're right. I'm starting to ask if I can't tell how I feel about Scarecrow. I don't know if I like him. I'm not sure yet. So I'm going to keep reading. So this is kind of something that's on my mind now as I'm thinking through Scarecrow. Okay, let's go on to the next page. He caught in Scarecrow's face. Crow clamped into Scarecrow's wrist with his dark golden beak and pulled. Scarecrow's arm, from the forearm down, detached from his body as stuffing burst out from both sockets. I need that, Scarecrow cried, as he rolled over to grab the detached arm with his right hand. His fingers brushed against his arm with a miss as the crow pulled it away. Scarecrow rolled onto his face. He watched helplessly while those branch-woven fingers in the fingerless glove, attached to the straw forearm, slid out of the coat sleeve and into the air. The crow flapped his wings faster with the wrist clamped tightly between his beak. Somehow he still managed to caw mockingly. Hey, don't you have a heart? Caw! I need that to caw! Survive, he trailed off. Did he need it to survive? He pondered what survival might look like as his arm flew higher. The crow's shadow grew smaller, cast down by the rays of the strange sun, which inched down beyond a mountain range off in the distance. The scarecrow brushed dirt from the side of his coat and pushed himself off the ground back onto his feet with much. All right. So I think this is the first time we're touching on plot. So the crow stole his arm. Do I like that? Yeah, I think I like that. Do I have any thoughts about that? It's interesting, but I don't think I have any thoughts. I think for now it's interesting. And let's see. Scarecrow rolled on his face. He watched helplessly. I think I like that he's referencing the. I think I like that they're referencing the strange, like the strange reference to the sun. Let's see. That was an interesting thing. The crow flapped his wings faster. And I think this feels like a crow, right? But it's interesting that they're using caw as dialogue. I don't think I'm opposed to that. I don't think I'm opposed to that as long as the author is consistent with the way that they use that. It does feel when he gets his arm stolen, it does feel a little confusing. So I'm gonna say when arm is stolen, when arm is stolen, the action feels off. There you go. Simple as that. All right, and moving on to next page. The scarecrow with much difficulty. He balanced himself with his right arm and gazed longingly at the empty coat sleeve, drooping lonely by his left side. The crow had finished the ascent and flew off in the direction of a tree line out beyond these fields. Scarecrow gulped. He might not remember much of anything, but he wasn't about to let that bird get away with his only arm. Perhaps a little adventure would jog his memory. The thought excited him. Something about the word adventure scratched at a memory underneath the surface, but it passed. I want my arm back, he shouted. Only a distant echo could be heard as the crow grew farther away. Caw! Scarecrow clenched his fist in the air, taking a couple steps forward. And when I do, he stumbled, realizing he had stepped precariously onto the edge of a cliffside. Scarecrow rocked back and forth, arm wobbling to and fro, while rocks crumbled at his feet towards the watery drop hundreds of feet below. All right. So that is the chapter. So that was a very short chapter. That was what, 4 pages? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So that was 5 So that was a very short chapter. Let's see. Difficulty. All right. So clearly, as I get to the end of this, Scarecrow clearly woke up in this field. He doesn't remember anything about himself. Do I like the character? Right now, neutral on Scarecrow. At end of CH1, he feels a little dim. All right, and then that can be used for the author. Is that what they're trying to achieve? Okay, and I like this kind of like funny in there. This crow, the crow on one chapter is all day. I'm kind of warming up to the crow as an antagonistic or as an obstacle. It seems like the crow's interesting to me. And then we end this chapter on he's rocking back and forth. So he stands up, he's in a field, he rocks back and forth. He's in a field, but he's also on a cliffside. Is this like a field next to a cliff? I don't know any fields on a cliff, but I don't know anything about this world. So maybe world building, I would put field next to a cliff. I don't know. And let's see, right? So then you can see there. And when I do Scarecrow, and then it looks like he's rocking back and forth. Okay. And I think that's everything I have here. So as I've reached this, now normally I would kind of take these notes after I do the end of the chapter. Now, if there's any structural issues when I think about like, did it feel like any of the paragraphs were off? When I look back at the overall chapter, the Scarecrow woke up, he didn't know where he was at. The crow pecked at him a bunch of times, stole his arm, and then he's about to fall off a cliff. Did I like that? And if I didn't, then I could put in the structure portion of it. I don't think I have any problems with the structure of it. I think some of my problems were more kind of like world building, a little bit more character development focused. So yeah, I think those would be the things that I would think of. Now, normally, like I said, I would touch upon those things at the end of my reading for the chapter. But I wanted to give you an example of how I would go about doing a beta reading for a piece of story. Now, of course, that was my own. So the question, am I being as overly critical as I could? And that is always the challenge, which is why we do not want to be our own beta readers. Just another reason that we do not want to be our own beta readers, and why we want to make sure we get feedback from other readers, writers, authors to make sure that we can make the best story possible. All right, my friends. So thank you all for joining me today. This has been an incredible video. If you got value out of today's video, make sure to tap that like button. And I'll be uploading more videos soon. I stream every day here on the Right Now channel. So if you want to learn to be a better writer and you want a daily writing community with all genres and skill levels, come join us because I want to help you with your writing skill level. And if you have any questions about the beta reading process, if there's anything that you want to know, drop a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. Do you want to learn how to be a better author, how to get your book published faster, how to learn the writing process? Then click on this video up here. I'll link to it so that way you can check out something that's going to help you be a better writer. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for checking out this video. That's all that I got for you. But unfortunately, you reached the end of the video. Don't forget, words are wind. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care, my friend.